now. It'll just be one, so one moment.
Okay. And Evan's good too? Okay. All right. Okay. So I will call the meeting to order of the Education Subcommittee to order at 6:04 p.m. on August 10th, 2020. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and by participating in the meeting, you are acknowledging your consent to be recorded. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Education Subcommittee of the Wachusett Regional School District Committee is being conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The meeting is being broadcast live on HCTV, and it's also being recorded so it may be rebroadcast. As a reminder to the Education Subcommittee members, please do not use the chat feature unless absolutely necessary. If something is in the chat, it will need to be read so that it can be in the minutes. And just so the viewing audience knows who is participating in the meeting, I will announce that now. So we do have HCTV recording being done by Evan S. We have Lauren Kirschenbaum, who's a member of the committee. We have, sorry, just blanked out. Laura, and we have Director of Social Emotional Learning and Guidance, Dr. Brendan Keenan. We have from the district as well, Deputy Superintendent Bob Burlow. We have Megan Keller from the WREA, who's an observer to the meeting. We have member Nicole Amos. We have Krista Bennett from the committee. We have Megan Weeks, who's observing the meeting, and she is also chair of the Wachusett Regional School Committee, and we have Deidre Shapiro, who is a member of the committee, and we have myself participating, Dr. Christina Smith. Okay, so we are ready to get going, and first on our agenda, we have the approval of the minutes from our August 6th, 2020 meeting. So they were included in your electronic information. So I'll give you a minute if you want to look over those, and then I'll first take a motion to accept the minutes, and then we can take some time to look over them. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 6, 2020?
So moved.
And then a second?
Seconded.
Okay, so I'll give you a minute to look over them, and then if we have anything we need to discuss, we can do that then. Anything anyone wants to address in the minutes? Okay. All right, seeing nothing, we will go ahead to a roll call vote for the approval of the minutes of our August 6, 2020 meeting. So we have Amos?
Yes.
Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Okay. Sherry's not here, Bob's not here. Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Okay. Deidre?
Shapiro, yes.
Sorry. I also vote to accept the minutes, so those passed unanimously. Okay. And we have one more member of the committee joining us. So Linda Longaleel has just joined us. So welcome, Linda. And we have another member of the committee, and it's an S, so it's Sherry. So Sherry Sherry Merchant has joined us. So we have our almost full committee. We're just missing Bob Imber tonight. Okay, so next on the agenda is we have our policies to review, but I'm wondering if we wanted to take things out of order. Bob, did you want us to go to old business with the reopening plan, or do you want us to go on to policies? What would be the district's preference?
Maybe we could do what you just suggested, which is to do the old business, and then we could work as long as we can on the policies rather than the other way around.
Okay, so the old business with talking about the reopening plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So is that okay with the committee if we take things out of order and go to the reopening plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll do that. Bob, do you just want people to ask you questions? Did you want to say anything to us first?
I'll just give a synopsis about where we're at with the documents that were delivered later today to everybody. The guts of that, maybe 2/3 of that, come from the plans that everybody saw last week and we began to examine as a subcommittee. We've since added a in-person plan with some details around that, and a hybrid plan, and then a transition to a hybrid plan. So there's essentially those 4 other components. It includes a cover letter from the superintendent and I think just some summary statements. So that's essentially what's in that document that everybody got, the 41-page document.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have anything they want to ask about with the plan?
Can I speak?
Yep. Go ahead.
So I don't have a question, just a comment about 2 comments actually I'll make. Number 1, I had enumerated a number of questions before this report came out based on the draft plan, and you answered all my questions. You nailed it. Thank you for putting that this new revised plan together. There is one still outstanding question that I have, which has to do with time on learning. I'm not sure how to do the math myself, so I assume that there are other people who would not be able to do the math in the schedules. Are we meeting the time on learning requirements by the state with this plan?
As a district, no, we're not. We're a little bit short, so we'd have to ask for an exclusion from that requirement. For one of the schools, at least one, we are meeting it, but not for all of them.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sherry, you had your hand raised.
I was going to ask this similar question to Laura. So if that is the case, then why can't we adjust that schedule more to fill in more time? Why can't we make it look more like a normal school day? If that is the case, that we're missing those hours.
Sherry, it's like there's different aspects here we're trying to meet. One is to meet teacher prep periods. So by cutting down the available blocks that are in a schedule, that means there's less opportunity to cover with a related arts, for instance, of a teacher's prep period. So we're trying to include some common time, like in the morning. There's 40 minutes every morning where a teacher could use that for, we could cover for their prep period in mass. So some of those things are in there like that. Lunch is a little bit longer in this plan because students are at home and they're going to have to prepare their lunch as opposed to, or get it themselves, as opposed to being at school where they're just given it and they have their 18 or 22 minutes or whatever it is for lunch. So we lose a little bit of time there every day, which adds up over 170 days. So those are the 2 reasons that we're kind of settled on the way it is now in the plan. We are able to count the afternoon time. That's not time that is going to waste or anything, even though it's not a scheduled block like phys ed or history. We can still count it because it's teacher-directed learning that's going on there.
I would make a suggestion, this is Christina, as far as the explanation of the prep period, because the average person might not understand that that's probably a contractual component. Is that sure that just that teachers typically it would have this preparation time where they are working with other professionals or working on preparing materials, and that what you've done is in the morning period, you've given like everyone the same time period to do that, where if we were in the school building, it would be varied throughout the day. So the average person might not know that. So that might help explain a little bit of the morning component. I don't know if that's would be helpful for people.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to be able to say there.
Yeah, and I imagine too, some of that time would be used, and I know you're doing some of this on the Wednesday, but that's where teachers would be connecting for supporting students too with guidance or with other individuals that they might need to contact to help support students throughout the day as well. So it's just a catch-all period, but that's really important time, and it doesn't mean that teachers aren't working during that time.
Absolutely. And that's also where we're fitting in some professional development as well, which
Yeah.
in this new era of reinventing education is essential for our staff to have this time where they can grow collectively as
Yeah.
a group.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else? Some questions? You can either speak or you can put hand in the chat. I'm fine with you just asking your question unless we have 5 of us asking. I see Megan. Are you able, Megan? I know you're chair of the committee. As a member of our observation, are you able to participate? We don't typically.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because you're an ex officio, because you're a member of all the committees. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but I
Forgot.
cannot vote, so my vote does not matter.
All right, Megan.
So I guess my question right now, and I'm on mom duty for a little bit, so I apologize for the lack of camera. My question becomes with the time on learning. I think in reading the DESE guidelines for what counts on time on learning, the regulations are very wide and much wider than they would be normally. Even just like a study hall that is, watched by a teacher kind of conducts that time on learning calculations for districts right now. So I don't know, Bob, like if you guys have put all that kind of, directed study, independent study, those type of things into the calculations on time on learning. So with committee members maybe wanting more time on learning, if you could add that stuff in, that might get you to even.
Thanks for the comment there, Megan. We absolutely have included all that. And in fact, the only school that has studies is the high school, and it's overtime on learning. So we already included all that.
Okay, thank you. Just double checking to help you out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Question? Okay. Oh, Sherry, did you have anything or no?
I do. I was trying to see if anyone else did before I asked more. How was the hybrid decision made to bring in grades K1, 6, 9, and 12?
Some of that was from our discussions as a central office group. Some of that was from discussions with the principals as well. So for instance, in the high school, initially, that's what we're talking about here, to bring in grades 9 and 12, that came directly from the principal in his request. He's also been meeting with other area high school principals and discussing what they would do, and some of them are able to do things very different than we are because of space that they actually have within their buildings. So that's where the 9 and 12 came from. The middle school principals were adamant that they wanted to get grade 6 in to start to experience what it's like to be in the middle grades in their building without everybody else there. And in talking to the elementary principals, they felt it was most important to be able to start the reading process face-to-face with very young kids who don't really have an experience set to fall back on like we would with the older kids. Be aware, that's the next phase, and then after that would be essentially a phase 4, which is to get all the kids back in school. So we're just dividing it up and trying to bring in more and more kids through these different phases. So it's not like we're trying to exclude the rest of the kids from being able to get in the high school or the middle school or the elementary schools. It's just that was the next phase after we had our most vulnerable kids coming in initially in their phase 1 and 2.
I can see that. There's things that concern me though, like, well, first of all, that Glenwood is a completely open building with grades 3 through 5. They'll have no one there. It seems silly to me to not utilize all the spaces that we can.
There still would be, and so that's the thing, in phase 1 and 2, that's our most vulnerable population. That obviously includes special ed kids, but it also includes ELL kids, and it includes kids that maybe are socially, they're at a disadvantage in terms of their social economic status, like low income students. So that's where we'd be looking at bringing those kids in phase 1 and 2, and that goes across all our schools basically. So I don't think there would be any school that wouldn't be utilized to cover them.
So you'd bring them all to Glenwood?
No, we wouldn't bring them all to Glenwood. Those would go into their parent schools where they'd be heading to.
Okay, I just mean that once you phase into that next section with the other grades, it seems that at that point we could then bring in more kids there too.
We absolutely can talk about that, but as of today, this is the plan
Right.
that we have coming out the pike. And Sherry, you bring up a good point here. This plan is not final. It's not etched in paint or something where it's dried and we can't change it. This is very drafty, and this will change week to week based on conversations we have, additional guidance, where we're at, all those types of things. So that's a good point you bring up. This isn't set in stone. It's something that absolutely could change.
It also, it seems to me that it's not the best plan for families to do it from a grade level. If you have a child in first grade and a child in second grade, you still have to figure out a fully remote plan for one and a hybrid for the other. If you have a ninth grader and a fourth grader, a ninth grader and a fourth grader, where your ninth grader was maybe going to watch your fourth grader. Well, now the ninth grader's at school and the fourth graders, they have to find something to do with him. I was really hoping that we were going to find a hybrid plan that was going to bring families in at the same times.
So Sherry, just so we're on the same page here, when bringing in half the kids in cohort A and half the kids in cohort B, and we're meeting all of that. What we're talking about here, you and I, is a transition to hybrid. And so we're going to transition to hybrid in phases, and we're going to do that by bringing in, at first, the most vulnerable kids, and secondly, the populations that the principals feel they really want to get into the buildings before we open the doors and do all of cohort A and all of cohort B coming in. So that's what we're talking about here. Unfortunately, or maybe I should say fortunately, when we talk about the hybrid plan, we are putting parents up there as one of the top concerns for us as we organize that. And we probably will be trying to scoop whole families where it's physically possible. Now, I can't guarantee that kids would be on in the high school the same time an elementary student is on, because realistically, the high school probably will be, when we do that cohort A and B, 2 towns go for one session and 3 towns go for the other session. That's probably how the high school will shake down. But for middle school on down, we're going to try to scoop as best as we can certain sides of each town so that families would be on in cohort A and off in when the other cohort comes in. Unfortunately, though, when we were trying to set up this transition, when we were looking at the students and who should we bring in, we put not parents as our top priority. We put student learning needs as our top priority. So in that case, that's where your example is absolutely correct. Parents might not feel it's in their best interest to have their 4th grader at home and their 9th grader is going to the high school, but we were looking at what we needed to do for kids to best set them up for success. And we didn't have parents as our top priority when we were setting that plan in motion. But that's only a few weeks long, that transition.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you. And so just to be clear, last week we talked about our policy on parent requests and so forth. Are these decisions going to be left up to the principals to decide which groups are going to be able to come in as we do this transition? How is there a I'm not sure if I read this in the plan. Is there a method that parents can communicate directly to somebody in the district to have these personalized conversations around family needs and so forth?
Yeah, that's a good question, Laura. So in the transition to hybrid, that part of the document, and that's definitely in maybe the last quarter of that document or last third of that document, there's a table in there. And we chose those words very carefully when we're talking about phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, who would come in, especially phase 1 and 2. We chose those words very carefully. So in some cases, Laura, like the first group of kids we'd be bringing back to school, some of those are kids that are already in like maybe a substantially separate program. And those are the kids for maybe a particular building that would qualify. I'm not saying they would be the only kids, but it could be in some cases just based on where students are and the level of services we provide them in the past, that's dictating if they're in phase 1 or phase 2. And there's only a few weeks difference there between those two phases. In phase 2, I think it's a little bit more open for interpretation. This would be our most vulnerable students would be coming in there. And maybe there's a student who, before all this happened, was in a better place and has had significant regression as a result of being out of school and not getting face-to-face services. So that's where we would be having some conversations, and parents absolutely could talk to us about, make their case for what they believe their student should be in or shouldn't be in, those types of things.
Thank you. Deirdre?
Hi, yes. So I have a question about the post-grad program at the high school.
Yep.
I don't see it mentioned at all throughout the whole document. And mind you, I'm really skimming it because I only had a little bit of time when I got it. But is that got its own plan, or how is the post-grad program going to be handled?
No, they would be one of the groups that we would be bringing in. Now, that might be a better question for Christine Smith, our Director of Special Ed. We had a large document today that was in here that listed all these different SPED groups and names and all names of programs, all that type of thing. It was a little convoluted and a little confusing, so we distilled that down to these very focused words that are in the different phases there. So she could tell you exactly where that's going to be. Here today, not remembering exactly where that was, I kind of feel it was in that phase 1, but I wouldn't want to say that if in fact it was in the phase 2. So that would be a question I'd say we'd want to ask her during the full meeting.
Okay, sure, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to ask anything or make a comment? Okay, give 5 more seconds. All right, well, you know how we have to do our wait time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Especially with the technology, sometimes it's hard to find that button when you want to say something.
It absolutely is.
Okay, so that old business, I guess we'll take it off the table for now, and it will be something that'll come up this evening. So we'll have more information there, and you obviously could ask more questions in that setting. So we'll go back to Roman numeral 3 on our agenda. We have our policies that we're reviewing. So as a reminder, we've been looking through these policies that are listed under Roman numeral 3. 2 of them that are listed we looked at last week, but this was just we had to have our agenda up so that for open meeting law. But as you remember, we looked at the audio, video, interstenographic recording, so the P3813 and P6260, assignment of student to classes last week. So those aren't in our rotation right now. We are using the mask guidance, which suggested that we look at policies that are related to COVID-19 closure and our reopening plans and determine whether the policy may need to be suspended, modified, updated, or if we needed to create a policy. So Bob, I'll have you on again to let you, like we did last week, I think it was helpful with you letting us know which one you wanted to look at next in the order.
And so today I'm going to push us towards travel and study abroad and see what you think. I'm trying to give you a recommendation that would spur a conversation, and I think that really kind of played out pretty well last week when I said I recommend that we suspend whatever one that was. Oh, it was on placement of students, and the conversation I felt was very valuable around that. So that's the way I'll approach it again tonight. I'll put something forward and suggest we suspend it, and at least we can have conversation around that, and you guys decide where we ultimately go. So I'm looking at policy 3321.2, and this is travel and study abroad.
Are we going to be able to share either your screen or Brendan's screen just for the viewing public?
You give me a minute and I'll bring it up.
Okay, sure. And again, just for the viewing public, we know you're all near your computers when you're watching these, but you can look these policies up on wrsd.net. And as Deputy Superintendent Burlow said, it's policy 3321.2, travel and study abroad. And we'll be looking at it in just a moment. And so just to get the conversation started like you did, I did like that last time. And we actually went with a different different recommendation that you made, which was really, that was kind of neat. I think how we went from suspension to affirming, which wasn't one of our choices, but we made it one. And we'll see what happens with this one. So this is our travel and study abroad. So we'll do, I think what we need to do is what we did last time is we'll take, so that we can have discussion, I'll take a motion to suspend, or I'll entertain a motion to suspend policy 3321.2, travel and study abroad. Will anyone make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have it's moved, and can I get a second?
Seconded.
Okay, and so it's been moved and seconded, and now we can have discussion. So I'll give you a second if you want to just review, and then if you'd like to talk, you can either speak or put hand in the chat. Okay, I do see I don't see a hand, but I see the word hand in the chat, and it's from Laura. Laura, go ahead.
Thank you. Given the fact that the United States is not able, citizens are not able to travel outside of the United States at this point due to travel restrictions, I would suggest that we not suspend this this policy, but I don't think that it's going to be relevant at this point. I don't think that travel is going to occur, but I think that the policy should still stand so that at some time when travel restrictions are no longer part of our routines, that no further action will be needed. We won't have to go back to reinitiate this policy. I think it should stand.
So your recommendation would be like to not take action on this at all?
Correct.
To just leave it the way it is, because this is prohibited anyway by our current status of
yes,
pandemic.
And if travel restrictions do get eased and the procedures are followed for approval, we would have to reinitiate this policy at such time. And I just think that it's one of these that we should keep on the books, not make any changes to, but realize that travel restrictions are going to make it such that we cannot go anywhere during this COVID time.
Okay, right. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I agree.
Okay. So we could, like we did last time, we could amend the motion, or we could take a vote and vote the motion down, and I guess, and then it just, I don't know, then that we have made a statement. So we probably need to amend our motion, or we take a vote and vote this down and this just stays. And then we don't bring it to the committee because there's no need, because we've just left it, right?
That's what I would say.
Also, the person who made the motion could also rescind it.
Okay, so all right, so that's a suggestion, Megan, is that from Megan, is the person who first did the motion, I guess made the motion, could rescind their motion, and then we don't have to take a vote. Is that how that would work?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you could take a vote on that.
Okay, I'd like to rescind the motion.
Okay. So so we have a second to rescind the motion, and then we vote on rescinding the motion. That's the next thing. Okay. I feel like I'm missing a piece here. Okay. So we have so a new motion, which is to rescind the motion, and we have to vote on the rescinding of this motion. Yes. Okay.
I think if the motion's rescinded, I think it doesn't need a vote, but I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me.
If Sherry takes it off the table as the maker of the motion, there's nothing on the table to vote on. So she rescinds her motion.
Okay. So we're like,
That's
so
what
it's
I
canceled
thought, and
out.
then it's just done.
So
Someone
it's
can make
canceled out?
Yep,
Okay.
it's no longer there. Someone can make a new motion at this point.
Right, so we're good on this. We can move along. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we're going to take no action, so we don't need a motion, correct? So we're going to move on from this policy. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Very good. The next one deals with class size. It's policy 3510. And let me grab that up here in 1 minute.
So for the viewing public, you can see all the list of the 3000s and policy 3510 on wrsd.net.
So here's what's bothering me about this policy. Those words right there. Right now, for a class of 28 students, we'll say, there's 14 seats in the classroom. So the number of students assigned to that class definitely exceeds the number of seats. And if we come back in a hybrid model where we're bringing in, it'll be less than half because some parents will choose to keep their students at home. So if we're going to be bringing in anywhere from 10 to 12 students in that class, the actual class size is somewhere around 22 to 24 in that class. And we would only have 14 seats available, for instance.
I guess I'm not understanding. Will you explain that again? So like in a hybrid model, a math class might have, or an elementary school classroom would have, or whatever's easier. I'm not understanding.
So Mr. Burlow's grade 4 class might have 24 students in it. Based on the physical dimensions of my classroom, there'll be less than 24 seats in that classroom, and that's due to social distancing requirements when students come back. So there will be many less seats than the number of students assigned to that class. We'll be getting around that by having 2 cohorts come in, an A and a B kind of thing. So that I just want to bring your attention to those words to see if you want to take any action here.
It's the word seat. Like you're seeing it as physical seat instead of course enrollment or something.
Yep.
Okay. So I think that, so you probably have a recommendation for us. It might be, but I have one too. We'll see what your recommendation.
Let's go with yours for a change.
I think I would entertain a motion to, it would be modify. It's either modify or update. It's just a word change. I don't know if we do like a modify, to modify. So I would entertain a motion to modify policy 3510 class size. Anyone want to make that motion?
Are you making would we make the motion to include the actual wording?
Well, we have
to get to a discussion.
Yeah, I want to get to the discussion. Yeah.
Okay.
But it'll be modified. Yeah. You'll move it. Okay. Sherry moved it, and then Laura seconded it. Yeah. So what I would suggest is that it's the word seat that is causing the problem. So if we can think of another word, the number of students assigned to any class shall not exceed the number of overall enrollment or something like that. I think in Bob's description to me, it was like physical seats, but I don't think that's what seat means here. So I don't know. I'll hear other ideas.
I do actually think it does actually mean seat, because you can't have kids who do not have a physical seat. But I think that maybe instead of the word seat being the problem, being the number of assigned to any class. And it should be more something to do with the number of students, assigned to that room.
Okay. And you think seat because the other stuff about stations, computer, et cetera. Okay. So I see. Thank you. So I think, Krista, I think was yours up for the last discussion or for this? It was probably the last one. Okay. So Deidre?
Yeah, actually, I'm agreeing with Sherry there. I think that the number of, because the spirit of of the wording is that they don't want kids standing. I mean, so they are talking physical seats. So in spirit of that, and say number of students assigned to any room shall not exceed the number of seats in that classroom. So I think the word, like you're saying, needs to come out. Does that sound right?
So here's what I would say. I think even if we say that, I would still say that's a concern of mine, because on paper in Power School, there will be 24 students assigned to Mr. Burlow's grade 4 classroom, and that will absolutely exceed the number of seats or desks or any other word we have in my classroom or room or whatever words we're going to use. I just don't know if we want to be saying that at all for right now. We can always come back and put it back in at another point in time, but for right now, I don't know what the benefits are of those words.
Okay, other thoughts? Linda?
Can I amend the motion?
Yes.
All right. So I move that we amend the motion to remove this sentence from the policy for this school year, for the 1-year duration. Period.
So, do we have, so we have an amendment to remove this section, this sentence for this school year, Laura, or is that what we had done last? Remember we had another one that we did a policy like this. We did something like during the COVID emergency, during this academic year. Is that?
I'd like to keep it just for this academic year, and so that we have to look at it should this COVID emergency, God help us, continue through the next year. But I think that we should take it up again, anyways, again, and I'd like to have this as a sunset clause so that it will just initiate again the following year.
Okay. Right, so we have, second. So we have a second to that. So we'll need to vote.
Who's second, please? Can I?
Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Right, so we have an amendment to the motion, and that is to, on policy 3510, class size, that we would remove the sentence, the number of students assigned to any class shall not exceed the number of seats in the classroom, the number of stations in a lab or art room, or the number of computer stations in a computer or learning lab for this academic year of 2020-21. And then we would revisit, it would go back into effect after that time. So we had it moved and seconded. So now we'll take a vote on that amendment. And then if the amendment passes, then we would take a vote on that. So a vote on the amendment. So we have Amos.
Amos, yes.
Bennett.
Bennett, yes.
Haber.
Haber, yes.
Kirschenbaum.
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Longbeliel.
Longbeliel, yes.
Shapiro.
Shapiro, yes.
And I vote yes as well. So the amendment passed. And do we have any discussion on this amendment? Okay, so now we'll take a vote on the motion. Does anyone need me to repeat the motion?
Yep.
Okay, so the motion again is that the motion on the table is for policy 3510, class size, that we would remove the segment that is highlighted on the screen. The number of students assigned to any class shall not exceed the number of seats in the class, the number of stations in a lab or art room, or the number of computer stations in computer or learning lab for the academic year of 2020-21. Okay, so we will now vote. So Amos?
Amos, yes.
Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Haber?
Haber, yes.
Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Longbeliel? Longbeliel? Oh, I think she's good.
Sorry,
That's
I was
okay.
on mute. Longbeliel, yes. Sorry.
Okay. Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
And I vote yes as well, so that passes. Okay,
Thank you.
welcome.
Let me get one that maybe is an easy one, and then we'll jump back to one that maybe is a little longer. So I'm going to go to policy 3,840 extracurricular activities to see if you'd care to take any action on this or not. 3840.
Okay.
My only concern could be that this might imply sports, which might be out of our hands. So I don't know if that has any implications on the words that are here or what your thoughts are. So I just wanted to bring it up so we could at least think it over.
Okay. So that we can discuss this, does anyone want to make a motion?
Linda, I move. So moved.
What would you like to do with it? Would you like to suspend, modify, update, create, or affirm? Yeah, that was a choice.
Let's say modify for the time being.
Okay. So there's a motion to modify policy P3840 extracurricular activities. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we had a second from Sherry. I think Sherry, right? Sherry did it. Okay, and then discussion.
Is that all that?
Draw your attention here for 1 minute.
Okay.
If we're unable to provide sports because sports are canceled, let's just say by the MIAA, would this necessitate us, if parents pushed back on those words, to provide some sort of sports in place of the formal ones that were canceled? I don't know that. So I'm just trying to bring that up to make sure we understand the implications of this. So that's all I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it says extracurricular activities. And we provide a variety of extracurricular activities. Sorry, did I not raise my hand? I apologize. I mean, so I don't see anything that specifies that we have to provide sports as an extracurricular activity. It just says extracurricular activities.
Okay.
Are sports an extracurricular activity? I mean,
they are, but it doesn't say, it doesn't specify that we have to, that the extracurricular activities that we provide include sports.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we have Laura and then Krista.
I guess I wonder, and when I read this policy, my mind went to something even more stringent, as to say, in accordance with federal and state guidelines. In other words, are we meeting Title IX obligations, regulations, and so on and so forth? So, at this point, I'm not sure, given the intent for this conversation with the COVID-19 emergency, I see no real challenges to having this as something we aspire to. So I don't see any need to change it.
Okay, thank you. Krista, and then Sherry.
So looking at it, I think like maybe we could add just like a word in there, like just adding the word safe might take care of that. Like, yes, you might, I really like Laura's idea of putting out, that it's in accordance with, but if you said, provide a safe and sound educational experience, then safe would make sure that it is in, an atmosphere that they're going to be okay and healthy in that situation as well. So, I mean, that's my idea. That's the only thing, like, I look at it and I go, oh, well, you could just add that and it would take care of it, in my opinion.
Idra, would you entertain to safely participate?
Mm-hmm. Or
that sounds good to me.
Because if it's unsafe for kids to participate in sports, for instance, then that could be why those aren't. We would be able to fall back on a word and say, we can't offer it because they can't safely participate.
Yeah, I would support that because that's something that would be longer standing as well, beyond emergency.
Yes. I think that the word safe is difficult though, because safe is a very judgment. You can use your own judgment as to what is safe for
Right.
you versus.
Right.
I mean, you could say that football's not safe, so we shouldn't offer football.
Yep.
True.
That word
Yeah.
bothers me.
Yeah,
And
I
do
agree
think
with
that.
that.
It covers
Yeah.
just as is. I think it stands fine. I don't think that we need to list sports. I mean, we also don't list chess club or math club or any of the things that we can actually do. And I don't see why we need to specify anything.
Right. I agree with that. I think that, again, it's a broad general category, extracurricular activities. Gives us very wide discretion as to which ones we provide, and it doesn't require us to provide sports as extracurricular activities. There's no, I think it would be very hard to interpret it that we have to provide sports specifically.
Okay.
And I would defer to an English teacher here, but shall is different than will, right?
I was just gonna bring that up. It's an option, shall.
And then Nicole, you had your hand raised, and I think everyone else was able to go. So Nicole, did you want to add anything?
I think I have a question about, because we keep referring to sports, but as for extracurricular activities that are not sports, are they still going to be happening? Can they be remote? I can't imagine we're going to have, kids working on the yearbook, a bunch of them in the same room. So is it that we are offering some activities remotely, or are we saying if it's a small enough group, then they can participate in activities?
We are making every effort to be able to offer extracurricular activities remotely. Some, however, the frisbee golf or whatever it's called, I'm not sure we're going to do that, ping pong. So some we might have more of a challenge, but we're making an effort to offer as many as we can remotely due to the socialization aspect. We think that's really important for kids to have something outside of academics to get together and be a kid and everything. So.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, we just have a couple more minutes and we'll have to go because HCTV has to get ready for the next meeting too. What have we left it where we had a motion on the table to modify the policy? There was a suggestion of adding the word safely. As the modification, do we want to add the word for students safely to participate, or are we looking at leaving this as is? I heard both of those thrown out here in the discussion.
I would leave it as is, and I would rescind my motion.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to rescind the previous motion. So we need we need a second, or do we
don't need a vote? No, we don't need a vote.
You rescinded it. It's done. Okay. So you took it away. We're done. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that on that, unless someone wants to make another motion on this policy. Okay. So that one we are leaving as is as well. So no action. And at this point, just to remind you, our next meeting going down on our agenda, our next meeting will be the next time school committee meets, and I forgot to look it up before we got on, but whenever it's already posted, so you can check that out on Rebecca's postings. And does anyone have anything they want to add to new business before we go?
Nope.
If anything comes up, you can always email me if you have an idea that comes up. And I mentioned the district indicators last week, so we'll get those on a future agenda. So absolutely. At this point, I will entertain a motion for us to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
You guys are always so quick on this one. And then a second.
Second.
Okay, and we had a second. And so we'll take a roll call vote to adjourn, and then we'll take a little break and then see you in the big meeting. So Amos?
Amos, yes.
Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Haber?
Haber, yes.
Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Longbelial?
Longbelial, yes.
Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we are adjourned at 6:53. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.